Yo, what's going on, guys? So this video is going to be a little bit different. I am going to compare the Joe Budden podcast of old with Rory and Mal versus the current podcast with Ish and Ice, and he occasionally brings on guests. I mean, he did the same thing previously, but I'm going to compare those two for you guys today. If you guys are interested in this kind of content, let me know definitely below, because it's the first time I'm doing something like this. I saw you guys like the way I talk about the podcast just generally when I'm watching it. So for those of you guys that like that kind of content, definitely like, comment, subscribe. Comment below if you guys agree with my analysis of the video, of the differences between the videos now and then. If you think they're better, worse, like, let me know what you guys think, because I'm very curious as to how people feel about it. So let's get right into the video. Cue the intro. So, as you can tell, we're going to be talking about Rory and Mal versus Ish and Ice, kind of. It's not necessarily them actually against each other, but how the cast works together, how the conversations work, things like that. So, first thing you guys notice with Rory and Mal and the difference between Ish and Ice is the difference in age. I definitely think Rory and Mal, they kind of bring in a younger crowd because Rory's age, and it also brings in a different dynamic entirely because of Rory's ethnicity. I don't know how a lot of people feel about that, but I think that's just the truth. Parks is on here still, but it's not the same because he's not on screen in the same kind of way. So it lowers and shrinks the demographic that might be interested in watching. I don't think that could be for good or worse. I don't think it should necessarily be that way, but that's how things, I guess, tend to be. So that is what it is. They definitely joke. They joked a lot more previously, like as far as talking about artists, talking about people. They kind of took more shots at people. I feel like that's probably the best way to put it. They took a lot more shots at artists. They were more willing to go against the grain, and all the time they talked about kind of the creator versus the company. So I definitely think, actually not even company, just like the corporate structure, I definitely think that has changed entirely. I feel like Joe is being a lot more apparent about him wanting to become like something like that, so a CEO or some kind of mogul in some kind of way. So he's just working a little bit differently. I think Ish is a completely different dynamic because of the money that he brings in himself with his own business and with his age. I feel like he just comes from a different place than Mal, Rory, or Ice. I think Ice is great also. I think Ish is great. I think all of them are great in their own way. Ice, he will go against the grain more than anyone. He's willing to argue about anything. But there's sometimes I feel like the fans comment. They say oftentimes he looks like he's pandering. And it can come off that way. I don't know if I necessarily feel that all the time, but it definitely happens sometimes. Joe, he's less spicy for sure than he was before. I think he's trying to be safer with things, but there are times when he can be a little bit spicy. It's more so towards women. I think he's just flirting, and he's like, yo, this is how I flirt. This is what it is. You either like it or you don't. I don't care. Like, I have plenty of women that are around me that know how I am, and it doesn't bother them. Like, I'm not trying to rub anyone off the wrong way. He does say it, but I think he's more so on the lines of, oh, if you don't fuck with me, I don't fuck with you.
Okay. So the stuff I said about Joe actually not being like that and being a little bit more PC and everything, you know, when women are on the podcast, Joe's kind of wildin'. So, ladies, if anyone gets to this point, please let me know below how you guys feel about Joe's antics and what he does, because I don't think it's by coincidence that most of the people that watch this podcast are male. So definitely comment below, let me know. I need to have some kind of idea, because I think he's wildin'.
I don't care. So I think Rory, Mal, and Joe, they definitely tend to a younger crowd. I think when you bring Ish and Ice, I think it ramps that up a little bit as far as the age range. I don't think all younger people are going to be turned off by the conversation, but a lot of things they talk about I feel like are life topics and things that I don't necessarily feel like a lot of people would understand. A lot of younger people would understand. I feel like a lot of younger people would necessarily be interested in his content now. And I feel like that's almost apparent with the views, because when I was getting the most views and I was looking at the analytics for some of the like my top videos, they're all like 25 to 35. There's a little bit from like 36 to 44, but it's virtually all 25 to 35, and then everyone else is up. 18 to 24, there's not very many at all. There are some of you guys out there, and shout out to you guys. I appreciate all you guys, but there's a lot more in the higher age ranges that I'm getting than the lower age ranges. And I think that's partly because when you go through more things in life, when you have a kid, as Ice does, Ish does, and Joe does. Mal didn't have a kid, and Rory, I don't think Rory has a kid yet, or she's pregnant or something. I don't think yet. I don't know. I don't think yet. Something like that. I don't think they have kids, but it's a different thing. So they talk about kids a lot more. They talk about long-lasting relationships, how people view people in relationships. And Rory and Mal, when they were on the podcast, they joked, like I said, about artists. They talked a lot more about music. It was a lot more in-depth conversation about the tracks going on and things like that. They talked about mental health a whole lot more. I think that attracts a whole different crowd. I think Joe talked about it a little bit now, but it was a different dynamic with Rory. Not necessarily Mal. He's not the one that contributed to that as much, but Rory entirely contributes to that. So also, Ish and Ice, they're not podcasters. So it's not like they've been on as long as Mal and Rory have been with Joe, at least for those roles. They're getting more used to it and everything. Of course, I like the podcast now. I know so some people don't. People talk about their numbers. I don't care. I don't care about their numbers. I think the numbers are still pretty good, and also they're spread across more streams, so it's harder to tell if you're just looking at YouTube. But yeah, I think the podcast is a little bit different as far as the age ranges go up. They talk more about life topics versus just joking around and it being like a comedy hip hop podcast. So I think those things are important. I think the way the podcast changes is going to hit different niches and different crowds. I think if you have Rory on, that is a white male, that is a younger male, he doesn't only attend to the crowd that is younger, but he's also attending to all the people that might not be a minority. I'm not saying every single white person's the same, every single black person's the same, or anything like that. What I'm saying is if he fits that demographic, he's going to connect more with the people within that demographic, more likely and definitely more than Mal, Joe, Rory, or no, Mal, Joe, Ish, or Ice. So if you're looking at a white demographic who's going to connect with them more on what they talk about and things like that, it's going to be Rory. Rory jokes about that kind of stuff all the time. Rory never talked about anything serious. Mal never really talked about anything serious either. I'm not saying Ish and Ice go on there and talk about all of their personal lives, because they don't. But I feel like Mal and Rory didn't talk about their personal life at all. And so when these three, the new crowd, as far as Ish and Ice and Joe, they're talking a lot more about like what's going on in their dating lives and what they're used to as far as romantic type things. So I wouldn't say it's entirely changed, because they talk about music a lot in here. Like they're just talking about the Dipset versus Locks. They're talking about everything. Everything as far as new music coming out, Drake, Kanye West, anything new that's kind of popping off they usually talk about. But the relationship stuff, I feel like, is a definite pull on what they do now. I like the content a lot. I feel like it's really good. I feel like Joe is a lot safer now, but he has to be with the status that he has and how much more understanding I feel like he has. He's trying to make sure he gets as big as he can and he doesn't fall. And he will collapse. He will completely collapse if he just does the wild stuff that he used to do. He's still a wild boy, but it's not the same. So I think the podcast is great. I think that it's probably going to evolve a little bit more as the guys get a little more used to being on camera. I wonder what they're going to do as far as the dynamic of just three of them. Are they going to add someone? Are they going to remain three? Because it seems like they're playing with the idea of adding in a woman. Because they've added Bridget a couple times. Joe's asked her what she's doing. like on Fridays, which I think is when they do one of the Patreon episodes. So yeah, guys, if you guys like the Joe Budden podcast still, let me know down below. If you guys don't like it, let me know. And not just because of the antics and everything that's happened outside of the podcast, but the podcast is out for the podcast. I know the outside stuff matters, but as far as just watching the podcast, what do you guys think? So let me know below, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Talk to you guys soon.